Sean in Northern Virginia. Sean, you want to sound off on NC State? The floor is yours. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you. I'm quite shocked at how bad that offensive line looked, and I've listened to a bunch of podcasters today while at work. I don't think it's been covered enough. I mean, you got Hollywood looks great as a running back, but I mean, whenever you have to miss 2-3 tackles before you can even touch the line of scrimmage, you still do it, and then you gain 3-4 yards. That says something about him, but it really says something about that offensive line. I'm not looking forward to the rest of the season.
I agree with you, and thank you very much for the call, Sean. I agree with you that the offensive line, particularly as run blockers, call back in anytime, particularly as run blockers had my antennas up, had my alarms going off. Right? It's as great as C.J. Bailey looked, right? Kind of what I was getting at earlier in that there's still a young player mistake in there a little bit. I don't think you want him dropping back 40 times a game. You want to have a running game you can lean on, play action that he can build off of, and the running. I mean, quite frankly, the offensive line's going to have to be better than that. They did lose a player to injury early on, right on that first drive, but not really an excuse for what we saw. Thank you very much for the call, Sean. David in Smithfield wants to sound off on State as well. David in Smithfield, welcome to the show. Go ahead and sound off.
Hey, yeah, man, I totally agree with what you were saying earlier in the show about just not putting them away. I mean, I was at the game, 17-0. You're sitting there relaxing. You're thinking, hey, we're gonna have an easy night, and we just didn't, we just didn't have no killer instinct, of getting it done. I agree too. We were up 17-0, and then it seems like our safeties and stuff, we were very soft in the middle of the field, and we just let them throw right over top of our, linebackers and safeties. We just didn't do well. I didn't think we were going to run the ball very well. I know I came home and listened to watch some of the game on TV afterwards, and they were talking about how much the ECU was stacking the box. So we'll see. I mean, it's frustrating, but we're going to have to see. You want to help us trust you, Dave. You got to Virginia, go beat Virginia, beat Wake Forest, beat Duke, go out 6-0 and get our confidence back. Because right now we're not very confident in what we're doing.
All right, appreciate it, David. I think that's where I said this yesterday before the show, or before the game on the show. I said, you can always win back trust. It does feel like Dave Doeren is losing some trust, but enough winning will win back trust. You just heard David lay down the gauntlet. You struggle against ECU? I need 6-0 to be back on your side. There's the conversion rate. One struggle against ECU equals 6-0 if you want me back on your side, says David there. We'll go to another David on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, 919-860-5326. If you don't get through, just means lines are full, but you can keep calling. We have a long time here to hear you. David in Raleigh, you are up next. Welcome to the show. Go ahead and sound off.
Hey, Tim.
Hello. Go ahead. You're on the air. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Must be David's think-alike today because he's thinking the same way I am. You started the show today, and you were spot on like you'd been a 50-year State fan, just like I've been suffering. I mean, you've been around this area, and I'm sure you've been following being a football player. But that's just our NC State identity. That's just who we are. We can't bury anybody. Whether it's basketball, football, baseball, do we have our outliers? Yes, we do. But when we need to just bury somebody and the opportunity is there, it's the same old thing. If I was the second number 2 kicker, I'd be smiling because he's going to get a chance next week. And the pass defense over the middle, like David said earlier, was just porous. It's just so weak. Why does it continue year after year after year, coach after coach after coach? It's been going on. We just live with it. We're Wolfpack fans. Go Pack Nation.
Thank you very much, David. I love it. I love the passion. 50-year fans definitely come with a different perspective. I will say the reason why. Well, first of all fans do it, right? You get your hopes up that this year is going to be different every single year. That's for every fan of every sport. If your team's downtrodden, this is our year. But the killer instinct part, the part that I thought was lacking in the second and third quarter yesterday, right? First quarter, pretty good. Second, third quarter, there's the opportunity to slam the door, take their will. You let them live, and then the fourth quarter becomes a hold on for dear life. You got to find a way to win moment. The reason I oftentimes go into a game, a season with maybe it'll be different, is I do think killer instinct is something that like one transcendent player can change. Right? If you just have the one guy that's the human dagger that's making the play that puts the other team out of their misery, that's enough. And you wonder if it could be somebody like Hollywood Smothers, or you wonder if it could be Noah Rogers, Wesley Grimes, right? Like somebody that's going to make the 60-yard touchdown that makes ECU go, yeah, we're not going to come back, are we? There was never that play. Never. Not yet, at least. Barry and Selma. Next up on the Heister Automotive Group hotline for a Friday sound-off, reacting to not just state. If you want to react to anything else in sports, we want to hear you. Barry and Selma wants to talk offensive line for the Wolfpack. Barry, welcome to the show. Go ahead and sound off.
Hey, Tim. Man, I don't know if Dave Doeren and the offensive staff knows what an offensive line is supposed to look like, because we've never run the ball since he's been there. I think that maybe that one year when they had Naheem Hines and Jacoby Myers with the jet sweep might have been his best success, but we can't run the football. If you can't run the football, it's like you said, C.J. Bennett's going to have to throw it 50 times a game, and that is not good.
Appreciate the call. Love it. Here's the hard part for me, and again, thank you very much for the call, Barry. Here's the hard part for me. It is a stereotype of a fan stuck in the past. It's like a meme. It's a cliche, whatever you want to call it, of a fan stuck in the past to just be in the stands yelling, "Run the darn ball!" But the part that's frustrating is that guy knows a little bit. Like, he's not always wrong. Sometimes you just have to be able to run the darn ball. And the funniest part about it, for State specifically, is I think Dave Doeren really wants to be a ball control offense-defense team. I think that's his ideal squad. But they keep trying to put together the roster and end up with a team that struggles to run the ball but has some dudes in the passing game. And it's like, well, that's not what you tried to build, is it? But you end up here. So a game like yesterday, you got up 17-zip, and it felt like they tried to play a little conservative, right? Prevent. Now, if you have, like, Derrick Henry, yeah, of course. But if you have a player in that mold that is ready, like you get up 17-0 and you turn to him and go, there you go. You're going to have 25 carries from here on out, pick up first downs, we're going home. Like that's one thing. But when you're trying to play conservative and your offense has to depend on the pass to move the ball, that could set you up for things like turnovers, interceptions. That could set you up for things like quick drives that give them more opportunities to come back. Being a conservative play caller after you get a 3-score lead is not the end of the world. But you have to have the offense to execute a conservative game plan once you have a 3-score lead, or else you're just playing right into your opponent's hands. Let's go to Edward and Wendell. By the way, Heister Automotive Group hotline, open for your calls, 919-860-5326. If you want to preview UNC, you want to give us a prediction for UNC TCU, we want to hear it. Or anything else going on in college football over the weekend. It doesn't have to be NC State reactions, but hey, Wolfpack fans, we want to hear from you too. Edward and Wendell's up next, sounding off on NC State. Edward, thank you for calling in. The floor is yours.
I think last night, again, kind of going to piggyback what I said on Monday, mediocre. Again, you said a couple weeks ago, I think, that C.J. Bailey or the is getting paid more than the whole ECU squad in NIL. Last night he didn't play like it. If he's going to play like he's paid more than the whole ECU, and we should have put up 30. Also, I don't want him to have a Brendan Armstrong thing. He doesn't look like him, but Brendan Armstrong a couple years ago, I remember he would have one read, and then just the second he did that, he was either going to chuck and throw, pick, or he was going to run 15 yards down the field and still get negative yards. But also, I heard on Pack Therapy that you're talking about this new defense and how last night I saw the same thing you're saying earlier, which was the second Dave picked up the tempo, they caught us off guard, and I was just wondering, does that new defense that you're talking about on Pack Therapy, is that good for that? Because that will be a big problem, because now we showed it in our film, so now whenever we play somebody else, they know all they got to do is pick up the tempo.
Edward, I will answer all of those questions. I'll do my best to answer all of those questions. But as always, you're always welcome calling in. And Edward, he laid down the gauntlet for Dave Doeren when we opened up the phone lines last week, and I assume that game against ECU didn't change his opinion at all. As far as changing the defense, tempo is I wouldn't say more threatening to a 3-4 versus a 4-3 versus a 3-3-5. Tempo is A, conditioning. It's B, having players that are not ultra specialists, right? If you're just I rush the passer on third down, I don't stop the run guy, then you almost can't be on the field when you're playing someone going with tempo. Because if you go out there on a third down, they pick up the first down, they're hustling to the ball, there's no time to sub, you're now out there having to stop the run in the next play. So I don't think the new defense and them struggling with tempo has a correlation there. I think they just struggled with the other team running quickly to the ball, and also we're running a new defense. And by the way, new defense, there'll be some growing pains. Like you're going to expect them to get better, but we talked with Corey Smith from Pack Pride before the game. We've talked about it a bunch. The secondary and the defensive line were the two parts that everybody was kind of concerned about going into the game. You felt good about Caden Fordham, felt good about Sean Brown as off-ball linebackers, and I think they did a really good job stopping the run. But the elements that you use, pass rush and secondary, to stop the pass, for the most part, not saying linebackers aren't involved, but for the most part, were the ones that were getting gashed on the tempo plays, kind of starting in the second quarter and beyond. We'll go to Corey in Raleigh, not the Corey I just referenced, a different Corey in Raleigh. This is a UNC fan. I like that he announces his biases on Front Street. A UNC fan that wants to sound off on NC State. Corey, welcome to the show. The floor is yours.
Tim, I appreciate you having me on again, and I just want to start by saying Edwin, you called him before, he is the man. He's the man. I live in Wendell as well, but I want to say as a UNC fan that first drive last night, it looked like you will see something different out of State. I thought it looked smooth. I thought C.J. Bailey looked very comfortable, especially from the start of the game. I think what everyone is seeing is that when ECU settled in and got comfortable, it was a different game. And I also see that there was a very big scare at the end where ECU could have tied that game up, but I think some play calling from the coaches prevented that, so we could be having a different story. So I think equally what I'm looking at is they think that they just seen a preview of what they've always seen. And I want to end by saying this. Duke is puke, Wake is fake. The team I hate is NC State. Can't go to heaven in a little red canoe because God's favorite color is Carolina blue. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you for the call. I'll push back on one thing. One thing might not have been as accurate as that caller made it out to be. He said that ECU had a chance to tie it up late in the game. Blake Harrell said after the game there was going to be no tie.
Oh, he was going for it.
If they scored that touchdown, it was going to be either a 1-point loss or a 1-point win because they were going to go for that 2-point conversion. So they were not playing for the tie. So you could argue State didn't get close to giving up a tie. They may have gotten close to going home with a loss or escaping even more narrowly with a win. We'll go back to the call-in line. Vince in Raleigh next up wants to talk about NC State. Vince in Raleigh, welcome to the show. The floor is yours.
Hey, Tim. Thanks, Dennis, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to be kind of contrary. I think that there were a lot of elements, as you mentioned, the linebackers, the receiving core, that young freshman receiver, that showed a lot of improvement, and I think there's a lot of upside. So I'm a little more than glass half full. Put it that way. I'm the 55%er. I'm not all gloom and doom. However, I did notice something, and it was something our last two callers mentioned, was the play calling. Very interesting, because at halftime, there's a new person on ACC Network. I forget his name. He used to be a running back at Stanford. Anyway,
he's a Wake Forest guy, just so you know. His name's Bryce Love.
Oh, Right, yeah, Bryce Love. I'm sorry. So anyway, you got the name right.
Yep.
So, and he picked it out too. He said, the first 15 or 20 plays were scripted and they looked real smooth. Then he said when they went off the scripting and obviously they're going play-by-play play calling, and he said the play calling became substandard, and he was right. And also there's second point that the young man was saying, that Edward was saying, is I found that with Bailey, he would look off his first two options very quickly, and within a second, it was just I'm just going to give it to a back or a receiver in the flat, not really giving much time to the play. So there are rooms to work, and that's why the offense settled into that quiet period after the early score in the third period. It just looked stagnant. And that led to that. On the other hand, I'm not gloom and doom over here. I might be the only one of your callers, but I'm not.
All right.
So thanks for the time, Tim, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Vince, and I appreciate the optimism. I'll actually be a little bit more optimistic than you on the play calling. I do think a lot of the complaints, a lot of them, and we heard a ton of them about Robert and I's play calling with State over the last few years. Not going downfield enough, not too many gimmick plays, too many of the speed sweeps, too many, all of those things. Tempo, going super duper slow. A lot of those were I wouldn't say fixed, but they definitely were different signs of life. You know what I mean? Don't forget here's the issue I had with the play calling. The issue I had with the play calling for NC State, and it's one, remember, Kurt Roper hasn't been calling plays recently, right? So he's getting into it as well. The red zone play calling is where I had issues. The deep balls that got them into the red zone, well-timed, well-executed, gave your players who are ready to play a chance to make a play, right? And once they got into the red zone, the conservative play kind of came back, right? And we'll never know what's on the headset, right? We'll never know if Dave Doeren's getting on the phone going, hey, we're in the red zone. Let's not mess with it. Let's make sure we get 3, right? And then that's going to change the way your offensive coordinator play calls. As far as C.J. Bailey going through his reads very quickly, and I watched the film and I did my best to kind of figure out what their goals were on each play, but we're never going to know. This is what I mean. We had a caller call in earlier, said C.J. Bailey's a one-read and done guy. If his first read's not open, he's immediately getting out and running or panicking. Then this caller calls in and goes, well, he's immediately getting through his first 2 reads and he's getting down to his third read too quickly. We don't know, right? We don't know what his reads are, but I will say this. Sometimes when you're super in tune with the offense and you're reading the defense perfectly as a quarterback, you're getting to your check down super fast. Because you know what they're doing, you know what your guys are doing, you know who's going to be open and who's not going to be open, you know who's worth waiting for, and if you immediately know, all right, Noah Rogers is my first read, pick another one. We'll go with Hoffman is my second read, but into this defense that they're playing, into cover 2, neither of these are cover 2 beaters, right? Oh, darn, we didn't have any man beaters, and they're in straight up man. Well, luckily, I have a running back and a check down. So it looks like, oh, you went through your first reads quickly, but really, you knew they weren't going to get open, so why wait around? Let me get it to my running back, pick up positive yards. Earlier, I made the analogy, Belichick telling Brady, no one will ever say we lost that game because of an incomplete pass. I'll one-up you even further. Only crazy people would say we lost that game because of a complete pass. So if you're completing passes to your check downs, good money, right? Can't go broke making a profit, especially if you're mixing in a 50, a 46-yard completion, a long touchdown. Like he did keep the defense honest throwing it deep and completed a good amount of them. I don't think C.J. Bailey's afraid to go downfield at all, and if he's mixing up check downs to the running back within that or Joe Lee across the middle within that, you will not hear me complain about it one bit.